Chapter 1. Betrayal and the Feeling of Being Deceived. Isabella Montgomery thought her life was over when she discovered her husband Marcus's betrayal. He wasn't just leaving her for another woman, he was stealing from her, hiding money, and creating a web of deceit. But what Marcus didn't know was that Isabella wasn't the woman she used to be. She was stronger now, smarter, and prepared for this battle. She didn't cry, didn't beg him to stay. Instead, she gathered the evidence, hired the best lawyer, and took the fight to the courtroom. In a twist no one saw coming, Marcus was cornered, his every lie exposed. But even after winning the legal battle and reclaiming everything she had lost, Isabella still had one more fight on her hands. Jenna, Marcus's former mistress, thought she could swoop in and take what was left. What she didn't realize was that Isabella had already won. Now, with her boutique thriving and her life slowly returning to normal, Isabella is ready for the future, one where no one can take away what's rightfully hers. This is her story of strength, resilience, and taking back control. The real battle is just beginning, and Isabella is ready for whatever comes next. I was standing in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of my navy blouse, when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a message from Marcus. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. He hadn't messaged me in over 2 months, not since we'd signed the divorce papers. It felt like a lifetime ago, and I'd thought I was done with him, yet here we were again. I glanced down at the message, reading it twice before the words truly registered. I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with Jenna. I've emptied the joint account. It's over. My heart dropped, but strangely there was no anger, no tears, just numbness. I stood there for a moment, staring at the message, trying to process it. Jenna, of course, the receptionist from his office, the one who had laughed too loudly at his jokes during holiday parties, who had brushed against his arm as if no one would notice, the one I had tried not to see, tried not to think about. But now, there it was, in black and white. She was the reason for this. She was the one who had been there when I wasn't. I closed my eyes, fighting the wave of emotions threatening to drown me. Anger was too easy. It would be easy to scream, to throw things, to demand an explanation. But I wasn't going to do that. I was done with his games. The years of wondering, the nights of uncertainty, they were over now. If he thought he could break me with a text, he had another thing coming. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog in my mind, and walked toward the kitchen. I needed to focus. I had work to do. My boutique wasn't going to run itself, even if my life felt like it was falling apart. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the room, and stared out the window. The sun was just beginning to set over the city of Los Angeles, casting a soft orange glow across the skyline. It was beautiful. It always had been, but today I didn't feel it. I couldn't think about him or about what he had done. Not yet. Not until I had a plan. The day went on like that. I helped customers with a calm, practiced smile on my face. All the while my mind raced. There was a slight tremor in my fingers as I folded clothes, as I arranged new stock on the shelves, but no one could see it. No one knew what I was thinking, what I was planning. By the time I finished the last customer and locked up the boutique, it was nearly 9. The city was quiet now, the streets empty, except for the occasional car passing by. I sat down at my desk, opening the drawer where I kept my files. The stack of financial papers sat there untouched for months, waiting for me to go through them. It was time. I flipped through the documents, my heart racing with every page I turned. There it was. A transaction from 6 months ago, a large withdrawal from the joint account, followed by several others in the weeks after. He had taken out over $30,000. No explanation, no warning, just a sudden disappearance of money, as if it meant nothing, as if I wouldn't notice. But I had noticed, and I had been waiting. I had been watching. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. This wasn't about the money, not really. It was about what he thought he could get away with, the betrayal, the lies, the manipulation. He thought I would crumble when he left me, that I would beg him to stay or cry over the fact that he was with her now. He thought I would be powerless, alone. But what he didn't know was that I had been preparing for this. I wasn't going to be left with nothing. I opened my laptop and began making phone calls, setting up meetings with my lawyer. I needed to get everything in order. The divorce wasn't over, not really, and Marcus was about to learn just how much I had been paying attention. As I finalized the last of the legal documents and set up the account transfer, a thought crossed my mind, a dark thought. What if he knew? What if he'd seen this coming? But I dismissed it almost immediately. No, he hadn't. He was too arrogant, too sure of himself. He thought he could walk away with everything. He thought I wouldn't fight back. He was wrong. I closed my laptop, staring out at the Los Angeles skyline again. It felt like a lifetime ago that I had stood in that very spot, dreaming of a life with him. But dreams change. People change. I wasn't the woman who married Marcus Montgomery anymore. I wasn't the woman who stood by his side hoping for something better. I was someone else now, someone stronger, someone who wouldn't let him take everything without a fight. Tomorrow, I would make the first move. Tomorrow, I would show him exactly what I was capable of. I stood up from my desk and walked to the window. The city was quiet, but I could feel the storm brewing. It was time to let it all out. The fight was just beginning. I closed my eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, before turning away. There was no time to waste. I had a life to rebuild, and no one was going to stop me. Tomorrow, the real game would begin.
Chapter 2: Broken Relationships and the Legal Battle. I sat at my desk, staring at the documents spread out before me. I had been awake for hours, reviewing and re-reviewing every detail of Marcus's financial maneuvering. The more I dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was about stealing everything I had worked for, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I clicked through the files on my laptop, looking at each withdrawal, each transaction that had seemed small at the time, but now appeared as part of a calculated plan. Marcus had moved money, hidden it, invested it into projects I hadn't approved. My mind raced as I traced the paths of his deceit, but the worst part? He'd made it look like it was all part of our shared wealth. The phone rang, snapping me back to reality. Leah, my lawyer, my best friend. I took a deep breath and answered. "Is everything in place?" Leah's voice was steady, calm, the way it always was, even when things were falling apart. "I think I have everything we need," I replied, my voice more certain than I felt. "I found a few things I didn't expect. Marcus was pulling money long before I realized what was happening." Leah paused. "We're ready to hit back then." I looked at the pile of paperwork on my desk, the evidence that was going to bring him down. "I'm not just ready, Leah. I'm done waiting. This stops now." We spent the next few minutes going over the final details. I had all the documentation, every transaction traced, every document signed, and now it was time to use it. I wasn't going to let Marcus's betrayal go unpunished. This wasn't just about getting my money back. This was about proving that I was no longer the woman who stood by while he ran off with my life. The next morning, I walked into Montgomery Enterprises, the company Marcus had been working at for the past decade. It still felt strange to walk through the door knowing what had happened. I had once been a part of this world, married to Marcus, supporting his career, but now I was just another enemy. "Hey, Izzy," Jenna the receptionist greeted me as I entered, her smile sweet, but her eyes just a little too wide. "How are you doing?" I gave her a tight smile in return. "I'm doing fine, Jenna, thanks for asking." She stepped aside, letting me walk toward the elevator. I could feel her eyes on me as the doors slid shut. When I reached the office, Marcus's assistant, Rachel, was there. I barely recognized her anymore. After everything, I couldn't even look at her without feeling a rush of anger and betrayal. She had been a part of this from the beginning. "Good morning, Mrs. Montgomery," Rachel said, her voice formal but her eyes darting nervously. "Morning, Rachel. I need to speak with Marcus." She hesitated but nodded. "He's in a meeting right now, but I'll let him know you're here." I stood by the window, my mind racing. Every second I waited felt like an eternity. I needed to do this. I needed to confront him, to take back control. After what felt like forever, Marcus finally walked into the room. He looked the same, dressed in his tailored suit, hair combed just right, the same smile he used to flash at me before he started tearing apart our lives. "Isabella," he said, his voice smooth, calm. "What a surprise. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, holding his gaze. "I know what you've been doing, Marcus," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "I know about the money you've been stealing from our account. I know about the fake investments and how you've been funneling money into your own little projects. How long did you think I would stay in the dark?" His eyes narrowed, and I saw the first crack in his perfect facade. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he said, his voice growing sharper. "Don't lie to me," I shot back. "You think I wouldn't notice? You thought I wouldn't find out? You were wrong." I pulled the stack of documents from my bag, placing them on the table between us. He flinched when he saw the evidence spread before him. "Where do you think this is going to get you, Isabella?" Marcus sneered, trying to hide the panic in his eyes. "You're just going to lose everything in the end. You can't take me down. You don't have the power." I met his gaze, my heart steady despite the whirlwind inside me. "I've already taken everything back. You're not going to win this, Marcus. You've made a grave mistake, and it's time for you to pay." He leaned back in his chair, attempting to recover from the shock. "You're bluffing." I smiled, cold and certain. "You'll see soon enough." I left his office that day knowing exactly what I was going to do next. Marcus had always underestimated me. He'd thought that because he was the one with the connections, the power, the money, that he could control everything. He never considered the fact that I was still in control of my life. He hadn't realized that the only thing standing in the way of him getting everything he wanted was me. When I got back to my office, Leah was waiting for me. I could tell from the look on her face that she knew what had happened. "You're ready," she said. "I'm more than ready. It's time to end this." The next few days were a whirlwind of paperwork, phone calls, and meetings. I had everything in place. The evidence was overwhelming, and I was confident that Marcus wouldn't be able to wiggle his way out of it. But as much as I hated him, there was a part of me that felt a little sad. The man I had married, the man I had loved, was gone. The person sitting across from me now was a stranger, someone who had used me, lied to me, and betrayed everything we had built together. Still, there was no room for regret. Not anymore. The court date was set, and everything was moving fast. As I sat in my office late one night preparing for what was to come, I couldn't help but think about how far I had come, from the woman who once believed in Marcus and trusted him, to the woman who was now ready to take him down. I looked out the window at the city below, the lights sparkling in the distance, and felt a small flicker of hope rise within me. This was the beginning of something new, something better. Tomorrow I would finally take my life back. The storm was coming, and I was ready for it.
Chapter 3. The Shocking Discovery and the Family Confrontation. The morning of the hearing, I was a storm of nerves and resolve. It wasn't just about Marcus anymore. It wasn't even just about money. This was bigger. I had been betrayed, yes, but now I was facing something more than personal loss.
I was facing a fight for my identity, for my future, and I was going to make damn sure Marcus didn't walk away with a single thing more than he deserved. I had spent the entire night going over the evidence again, the financial statements, the wire transfers, the fake investments, each transaction he had made under my name, every withdrawal from our joint accounts. Every single piece of paper told the story of a man who had planned this from the start, a man who didn't just cheat on me emotionally, but was robbing me blind while I slept beside him. As I arrived at the courthouse, I could feel the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on my chest. The cold, sterile atmosphere of the place seemed to add to the tension I was already carrying. I had walked into this building hundreds of times before, but today, everything felt different. I wasn't just here as a wife seeking a divorce. I was here as a woman seeking justice. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Leah asked as she slid into the seat next to me. Her eyes were filled with concern, but I knew she wasn't asking out of doubt. She was asking because she cared. I had known Leah for years, and she had always been the steady hand in my life, the one person who would never let me down. "I've been through too much to back down now," I replied, my voice more certain than I felt. I couldn't afford to show fear, not now, not when Marcus was so close to losing everything he thought he had rightfully stolen from me. The courtroom doors opened, and I could hear Marcus's voice drifting toward me. It had been a month since I'd last seen him, and yet hearing him again made my stomach twist. He had always been the charming, smooth-talking businessman, the one who could convince anyone that he was the good guy, no matter what he did. I wasn't sure how he would try to play it in front of the judge today, but I was ready for whatever he threw at me. I didn't have to wait long before he appeared in the doorway, looking the same as he always did, perfectly groomed, impeccable suit, his smile as fake as ever. "Isabella," he said, his voice dripping with false warmth, "it's good to see you again." I didn't respond immediately. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of hearing my voice first. I simply stood and walked past him, my head held high. He couldn't intimidate me anymore, not after everything he had done. He had broken me once, but not again, never again. The judge called the proceedings to order, and I took my seat. I glanced at Marcus, who was sitting on the opposite side of the courtroom. He looked calm, maybe too calm. I could almost see the wheels turning in his head, trying to figure out how to manipulate the situation in his favor, but he had underestimated me. Leah handed me the folder of documents, and I set it on the table in front of me. This wasn't just a pile of papers. This was everything I had been fighting for. This was my life. Marcus's lawyer was the first to speak. She was slick, confident, and she had clearly been trained to play dirty. "Your Honor," she began, her tone rehearsed, "we are here today to settle the distribution of assets in this case. Marcus Montgomery has been a successful businessman for many years, and it's clear that his contributions to this marriage far outweigh those of Mrs. Montgomery." I could feel the blood rising to my face as she spoke, the audacity, the complete disregard for everything I had done, for everything I had sacrificed. But I didn't let it show. Not for a second. This was my moment. Leah stood next, poised and calm. "Your Honor, while Marcus Montgomery may have contributed financially to their shared life, it is important to note that there are serious discrepancies in the financial records presented by the defense. In fact, we have evidence of several unauthorized withdrawals, false investments, and deliberate attempts to hide assets from the plaintiff." I watched as Marcus's face faltered for the briefest moment. It was subtle, but I caught it. He wasn't prepared for this. He thought I would fold, that I would be too weak to fight back. But I was here, and I was strong. I had everything I needed to expose him for the fraud he was.
Leah continued, presenting the evidence one piece at a time. The wire transfers, the investment records, the receipts that Marcus had so carefully hidden from me. Each one told the story of a man who had been planning to walk away with everything without ever looking back. "Mr. Montgomery," Leah said, turning to face him, "would you care to explain these transactions? Would you care to explain why your wife wasn't made aware of these investments until we uncovered them in the last month?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but he quickly regained his composure. "Those are simply business decisions," he said, his voice smooth, almost too smooth. "I did what I thought was best for us." "Best for us?" I couldn't help myself. The words slipped out before I could stop them. "You mean best for you, Marcus. Best for you and your little mistress, Jenna." I didn't look at him when I said it, but I could feel his gaze burning into the side of my face. "You've been planning this for months, maybe even years, and now you think you can just walk away with everything you've stolen from me?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" I shot back, my voice rising. "Is it about you getting away with a second chance at life while I'm left to pick up the pieces? Or is it about the fact that you think I'm too weak to fight back?" The courtroom was silent. Even Marcus's lawyer seemed to be at a loss for words. I wasn't sure what I had expected, but seeing him so shaken was more satisfying than I could have imagined. The judge, a man who had been watching the exchange carefully, cleared his throat. "I believe we have enough to proceed," he said, his voice stern. "Mr. Montgomery, you will need to explain these transactions in full. I will not tolerate any further attempts to mislead this court." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. This was it. The tide was turning and Marcus was losing control. After a few more tense exchanges, the judge adjourned the session for the day. As the bailiff called us out, I stood and gathered my things. But before I could leave the courtroom, Marcus stepped in front of me, blocking my path. His expression was no longer calm. It was a mix of anger and desperation. "You think you've won, don't you?" he spat, his voice low. "You think because you have some papers and a lawyer you've beaten me? You haven't. You won't." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "You've already lost, Marcus. The only thing left for you is to accept it." I pushed past him and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. It was done. This was my victory. But I couldn't stop thinking about the next step. The war wasn't over yet.
Chapter 4. The Legal Battle and Final Loss. The war wasn't over yet. I could feel the tension building inside me as I walked into the courtroom. Every step felt heavier than the last, the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on me. But there was no turning back now. This was it. The final showdown. I had already won the first battle. Marcus had been cornered by the evidence, and the judge had made it clear that his financial dealings were not going to be ignored. But I knew Marcus well enough to understand that he wouldn't go down without a fight. His arrogance would push him to keep trying, to twist the facts, to make it seem like everything was just a misunderstanding. He always thought he could talk his way out of anything. I sat down at the table across from him, my heart steady despite the storm of thoughts swirling in my mind. Leah was beside me, flipping through the files one last time. Her calm presence was a comfort, and I felt a sense of gratitude for her unwavering support. We had been through so much together, but today, this was the moment that mattered most. The courtroom buzzed with the quiet murmur of spectators and attorneys. Marcus, always composed, was sitting across from me with his usual smirk, pretending that none of this was bothering him. He probably thought he was going to win. He always had that confidence, that cocky belief that he could walk away unscathed. "Isabella," he said, his voice cool and calculated, "I still don't understand why we're here. Everything I did was for us, for our future. I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. His words were nothing but empty attempts to justify his actions. Leah stood up first, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "Your Honor, as we've already presented, Marcus Montgomery has been involved in a series of unauthorized transactions that have resulted in the unjust depletion of his wife's assets. These documents show that he has been manipulating financial records for months, hiding investments and transferring funds to accounts that do not belong to the couple." She slid a fresh stack of evidence in front of the judge, who nodded, flipping through the pages with a steady hand. Marcus's lawyer stood up next, his voice smooth and defensive. "Objection, Your Honor. The documents presented are one-sided and taken out of context. My client did nothing but try to protect his investments and secure his future. This case is nothing but a smear campaign against a successful man." I could see Marcus's lawyer squirming, trying to twist the narrative, but it didn't matter. The evidence was too strong, and even Marcus's usual charm couldn't save him this time. Leah turned toward the judge, speaking with an air of confidence that matched her calm demeanor. "We are here for no smear campaign. We are here to ensure that Isabella Montgomery receives what she is rightfully owed, and that Marcus is held accountable for his actions. These financial discrepancies are not a simple misunderstanding. They are deliberate acts of deception." The judge nodded again, his expression thoughtful. "I understand, Miss Rivers. Mr. Montgomery, you have had ample time to present your side of the story. Is there anything else you'd like to add?" Marcus's face twisted slightly as he stood up, trying to regain his composure. "Your Honor, I am not guilty of any misdoing. Everything I did was within the law. If there are any discrepancies, they are purely mistakes." I couldn't hold it in any more. I stood up and faced him, my voice steady but firm. "You've been lying for months, Marcus. You think you can walk away from this because you've always gotten what you want. But this time, you're not going to get away with it. The evidence is right there in front of you. You can't hide anymore. You stole from me. You took from us." Marcus flinched, his confident posture faltering for just a second. I saw it. His eyes darted toward the documents Leah had placed before the judge. For the first time, he realized the gravity of the situation. He had lost control. The judge looked at Marcus, then at the evidence, then back at him. The air in the room seemed to thicken as he spoke. "Mr. Montgomery, based on the overwhelming evidence presented, I find that you have violated both legal and ethical standards. This court will require you to return the assets you have unlawfully taken, and will hold you accountable for the deceitful conduct." I felt my breath catch, but not out of surprise. There was a small moment of satisfaction, a flicker of victory that I had been waiting for. I had been fighting for this, for justice, for what was mine. Marcus's face drained of color, and his jaw clenched tightly. "You don't know what you're doing," he said, his voice low and almost desperate. "You think you're winning, but you're not. You're only making things worse for yourself." I held my ground, my voice cold as I replied, "No, Marcus, I'm making things right." The courtroom was silent as the judge made his final ruling, ordering Marcus to return the stolen funds and assets. The weight of the moment settled over me like a wave, but it was a relief, a release from the chaos that had consumed my life for the past few months. Marcus wasn't going to just roll over, I knew that, and now it was time to turn my focus to what came next. The real fight was just beginning. The tension wasn't over yet, but I was ready for whatever he threw my way. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let it slip through my fingers.
Chapter 5: Recovery and a New Beginning. The courtroom drama was over, but the real work had just begun.
As the weeks passed, I found myself sinking into a routine I hadn't known I needed. The weight of the battle had lifted, but there was still so much to rebuild. My boutique was thriving, the buzz from the media slowly fading, but the sense of accomplishment stayed with me. I had reclaimed my life, and now I was free to define what came next. I'd always known I had a passion for fashion, but after everything with Marcus, the boutique had become more than just a business. It had become my sanctuary. Every fabric, every design, every new piece of clothing I displayed reminded me of how far I'd come, how much I had overcome. The store had grown, and so had I. Leah had been by my side through all of it. She wasn't just my lawyer, she was my friend, the one person who had seen me at my lowest and my highest, the one who had never wavered in her support. We'd spent late nights working on new collections, brainstorming ideas for expanding my business, and talking about everything and nothing. "You're doing it, Izzy," Leah said one evening as we stood in front of the boutique, looking at the new store window displays. "You've created something incredible here. I'm so proud of you." I smiled, the pride swelling in my chest. "I couldn't have done it without you, Leah. You've been my anchor through all of this." She laughed softly. "I just helped you make the legal mess go away. You're the one who turned it all into something beautiful." We were interrupted by a voice I had hoped never to hear again. "Well, well, well, look at you now." Jenna. I hadn't seen her since everything had come out in the open. The woman who had been Marcus's little secret, the one who had thought she could take everything from me. I turned to face her, keeping my expression neutral. "Jenna, what are you doing here?" She stepped closer, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I was hoping we could have a little chat about the future, about what's fair." My stomach tightened. "The future? What exactly do you mean?" "I think you know," she glanced at the boutique. "You've built something impressive here. I want in. I deserve a cut of this, don't you think? After all, I was part of the picture long before you ever figured things out." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "You've got some nerve, Jenna. You really think I'm just going to hand you a share of everything I've worked for?" She shrugged, a calculated move. "Why not? Marcus isn't here anymore. I was with him through it all. I helped him make the connections, helped him get the investments he needed. Don't you think it's only fair that I get a piece of the pie?" I looked at Leah, who was standing off to the side, her arms crossed. Her gaze was cold, but her silence was powerful. I turned back to Jenna, my heart pounding in my chest. "You really don't get it, do you? You've already taken enough. You've helped Marcus destroy everything that mattered to me, and now you think I'm just going to hand you what's left?" Jenna's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "You're not going to win, Izzy. You've already lost. The best thing you can do is accept it." I took a step toward her, my voice low but firm. "The best thing you can do is leave before you regret it, because you're not getting anything from me." She stood there for a moment, her eyes narrowing, before she scoffed and turned on her heel. "You'll see, Izzy. You'll see who's really in control here." As she walked away, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I had stood my ground. Jenna had underestimated me, just like Marcus had. They both thought I was weak, that I wouldn't fight back. But I wasn't weak. I wasn't afraid anymore. Leah came over and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You handled that well. She's not going to get anywhere. You're too smart for her." I nodded, but a thought lingered in my mind. Jenna would never stop trying to get what she thought was hers, but I wasn't going to let her. I had already been through too much to let anyone take what was mine. The days that followed were filled with more work, more decisions. I had learned to trust myself again, to rely on my own instincts. My boutique continued to grow, and with Leah's help, I started looking into new ways to expand. But there was still a part of me that felt like something was missing. I had fought so hard for everything I had. I had won the battle, but the war inside me wasn't over yet. I had lost so much along the way: trust, love, time. One night, after closing the store, I sat in my office staring at the collection of designs spread out in front of me. I knew what I wanted to do next. I wanted to take this business beyond just a store. I wanted it to be a brand, something that spoke to women who were like me, strong, independent, and unapologetically themselves. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Leah. "Let's do this. Let's take this to the next level." She replied almost immediately, "I'm with you every step of the way." And for the first time in a long time, I felt the weight of everything I had lost and everything I had gained fall into place. I was ready. This was my future, and I was no longer afraid to claim it.